Greetings and welcome to Nathan Lyle Official, and if you've never seen my face in a video before, my name is Nathan Lyle. This is my personal channel, and this video that you're watching is part of a playlist called Anime Corner. What is Anime Corner? Well, at the end of a simulcast, I stand in front of this camera and I talk about all the different anime that I watched and what I thought of them. This specific video is talking about anime that take place in an alternate future where an event happened that dramatically changed the way that people live their lives. And that's not necessarily the entire planet. Sometimes it's just the nation of Japan, since this is where most of these stories take place. But it dramatically affected the way that all of those people live their lives. And so we'll start with one called Gangster, which is starring Nicholas, a Twilight, which that gets explained in the show if you feel like watching it, and his friend Worick. The two of them are known as the Handymen, and they don't work for the mob, they don't work for the police, they are an entirely separate power who will basically, they'll take any job that you're paying them for. If you need something to get done that's a little bit dirty, they'll get in there and they'll get it done, and they'll do it well, they'll do it fast. And so it's a fun little show. It took me a while to get into it, but I think it's got very interesting animation, it's got good fight scenes, and it's just a very interesting all-around thing. I can't guarantee that you'd like it, and if you're new to anime, this might not be the first one you start with, but I think it's one that's definitely worth checking out. It took a while for me to really just get into it, but the more I watched it, the more I enjoyed it. Episode by episode, it got more and more intriguing and exciting. And then there's Shimoneta, a boring world where the concept of a dirty joke doesn't exist. And oh my god, this anime. Ugh. It takes place in a future where, at least in the nation of Japan, I don't know about the rest of the world, but in the nation of Japan, they wanted to make it the most purest country ever. It was the law for public morals and healthy child rearing decided to, basically they made it illegal to be immoral in any kind of way. The porn is completely outlawed. You can't even say words like cunt or anything else because they have these PM devices or personal monitors like around the neck and wrist. So, you can't say penis, you can't say vagina. Like, basically we live in a world where children are not taught about sex at all. It's a thing that just does not exist. And you're not allowed to say dirty jokes. Innuendo could get you like 3 years in prison plus community service and all this other stuff. And this anime is about an organization called SOX, which is started by a high school girl who recruits other people to help her just inform the children of just the world, of what the world is like, because they are unaware of their bodies and the things that they're going through and the feelings that they are having, because anything remotely sexual is now illegal. And it's just the most amazing story ever. It's all about censorship, and it's got such a great message, and they tell it in such a hilarious way. It's so fucking funny, and it's just such an amazing show. I cannot recommend it enough. This is definitely one of the must-watch animes of this simulcast session. And then we go on to Charlotte, which it's a very interesting one. It's kind of similar to like X-Men in the fact that, suddenly teenagers start getting superpowers. They manifest around the time you hit puberty, basically, and then by the time you finish high school and hit adulthood, they start just disappearing. But in the meantime, while your powers are active, there are people throughout the world who just want to capture you and experiment on you, and they want to be able to... Actually, I'm not sure what their goal is as far as acquiring your powers and stuff like that, but at least they want to know how it works, and they will experiment on you nonstop and until they can get it, until they can figure it all out. And so in order to protect all these kids, there's an organization that started this school, and the story revolves around this one boy who develops a power, and he's using it for his own personal gain until somebody recruits him to come to the school and join the student council. And this is a very interesting anime. Like, you can really split it in half. The first half, honestly, I barely paid any attention to it at all. It was really funny, but it didn't have a lot of, at least personally, I didn't find a lot of substance to it. It wasn't really worth paying that much attention to. It was just something that, like, oh, when it's on I watch it, but the rest of the week I don't think about it. But then a big event happens which completely changes it into a just really different story, and it becomes so dramatic, and it starts to have a lot of introspective, and it becomes this really interesting story. And then you get to the season finale, which just, honestly, it's almost like three different things. You have this, it starts off as the first half is just this really funny, not really worth paying attention to thing. This other one is this hard to watch but incredibly interesting, can't wait for the next episode thing. And then the final episode just kind of feels like an entire OVA, like a spin-off movie based on it. Honestly, like that, you know, the last episode, you could spread that thing out, make it an entire season on its own, and I would watch it. I mean, it was just incredibly exciting, and so honestly, this is definitely one worth checking out. And then there's also one called World Trigger. If you've been on my channel for a while, you've heard me talk about this before. It's been simulcast for over a year now. It's up to episode 50, and it's if you haven't seen it yet, it is worth looking at. And if you have seen it before, it's definitely worth continuing. At this point in time, it's about Yuma, Kuga, and Chika. They're doing the B rank wars, trying to move up in the standings so they could possibly become A rank, possibly start going on away missions. And it's very interesting just watching them fight, seeing the strategies that happen, you know, seeing Osamu grow as a strategist and the things that he comes up with in the field of battle and how that plays out, and just, you know, watching them try to win against overwhelming odds, since all these people are impossibly better than them. And it's a very interesting show. It's worth giving a look. And then you got Sky Wizards Academy, which, you know, it's just, it's a show about, I don't even fully understand it myself. The show, like, basically some giant beetles invaded Earth or something, and so to protect themselves, people now live in these floating cities, and they have a bunch of kids and teenagers going to school learning to be sky wizards. And this is about one specific sky wizard who at one point in time was known for being like the greatest warrior ever, but is now called a traitor by all his fellow sky wizards, which that gets explained in the story, so I don't want to spoil that. But now this entire series is about him being forced to coach a team, the worst team in the school, Fire Team E601. They're about to be disbanded because all of their members suck and they can't win a single fight. And so now he's got to teach them to be real warriors. And it's an interesting enough show. I was able to sit through it. I can't necessarily recommend it. I do love the main character, and I think it is fun watching him interact with these other characters. But he basically carried the show for me. These others aren't even worth paying that much attention to. It is I don't remember if it's billed as a harem anime, but it is a harem anime. There are very few boys there, and there's a lot of that whole, like, oh my god, you're a pervert, and so that happens a lot. It is very much a harem anime, and as far as harem anime goes, it's like right in the middle of the pack. You know, it's not an amazing one, but it's far from the worst. And then there's the last one I'm going to talk about in this video is called School Live, which, to make a long story short, it's about 4 high school girls who are surviving at their high school after a zombie apocalypse broke out. And, you know, for me personally, I went into this not knowing anything about it, and I actually think that made me enjoy it more than I would have if I read up on it beforehand, because I was watching it just to try and understand what happened, how we got to this point, what exactly is going on here. But, like, for me personally, it wasn't until the end of the season where people start dying that I'm like, oh my god, yes! When really I feel like when we get to that point, I'm supposed to be like, oh my god, no! So for me, it's definitely not one that really resonated, though I will say this much, it's definitely a lot more realistic than a show like maybe High School of the Dead, because this is about just 4 high school kids who suddenly, everyone around them is zombies, and they're just trying their best to deal with that. Because let's be completely honest, the majority of people on this planet, if the zombie apocalypse did happen, they'd be up shit creek, would not know what the fuck to do. So I do like that much about it. It is a somewhat realistic look at what would actually happen to these people in this scenario. But it's just, it just wasn't one that I really enjoyed that much. Which ones did I enjoy though? Well, top 3, if you're gonna watch any of these animes, the very first one I'd recommend, definitely Shimoneta. That's just the one. You have to look at it if you haven't yet. And then I'd say number 2, Charlotte. Number 3, Gangster. Those are my favorites from this segment. But be sure to look at this playlist, check out some of the other segments. Comment down below if you've seen any of these, what did you think? Or if you haven't seen any of these, do any of them sound interesting to you? And until the next video that you see my face in, my name is Nathan Lyle. This is my personal channel. If you haven't already, please subscribe, leave a like if you feel like it. I can't make you, I'm not your dad. Anyways, I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.